Bitcoin breaks through $76,000 and is now trading exactly where we were yesterday, namely at $74,000. Not much has really happened, I have to say at this point. The volume is still terrible. We're getting liquidity from further up. As I already said yesterday, I can easily imagine $76,000 heading towards Sailor's entry. That's basically where we've ended up now. And immediately the sell-off started again. The sell volume is breaking. Yes, records that we haven't seen for weeks now, you could almost say for a month now. That means in the spot order book yesterday, at times we had over 60 million in spot sales. That's a lot, especially for the phase we're currently in, because the uncertainty is still there. Oil is rising again. Trump's words, in the end, yes, I would say had an effect for about an hour, only for the market to rebound upwards again right after. But we'll take a look at all of this now. But before we get started, as always, feel free to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And of course, feel free to join the free Telegram talk and signal group. If you're interested in updates, news, and signals, you're welcome to join. You'll find the link for it for free down in the video description. There you'll always be informed, as I said, if anything happens with my trades or if we take any take profits, I'll always announce it there first. That is in the talk and signal group. Announce it. So let's get started now. So Bitcoin at 74,130 US dollars. Bitcoin is holding relatively steady, but the stock markets also saw a small rebound upwards again yesterday. Crashed because there was, well, how should we put it? There was briefly some positive news from Trump, who then said, okay, yes, we're close to the end of the war, which he already said last week. And the Strait of Hormuz is open and we'll be sending ships through here and there so that you are safe. And in the end, well, how can you put it best? Trump demands help with Hormuz, peace process strikes. Trump is asking everywhere if he can get any kind of help, whether from Germany or France or Japan. Nobody is interested. No one wants to get involved in Trump's Iran war. Yeah, to join in. A little bit, I'd say the Middle East is pushing back, of course, because it's being directly attacked. But otherwise, NATO doesn't feel like lifting a finger or saying, hey, come on, we'll help you out. Because they themselves are, well, a bit scared, apparently, or who knows why. In any case, that's also the reason why Trump wants to postpone his meeting with Xi Jinping for a bit. Because of the Iran war, which actually should have been over long ago, and it should have brought oil prices down by now. But if we take a quick look at oil prices and check over there, where do we have crude oil? Where do we have crude oil? Here, $97 per barrel again. So nothing has changed. That was exactly the moment yesterday when Trump said, yeah, the war will be over soon, and oil prices will soon be much cheaper than before. And who knows what else. When that guy comes out and says something, whether it's better, whether it's Trump, doesn't matter who, it's all just to calm the oil market. And these things that ultimately also happened here, these news from 120 down to below 80, that still works on a small scale because people don't let themselves be fooled anymore. That's the big problem. And we see exactly the same thing happening in the stock markets. Stock rally to stall as futures drop, oil jumps. In the end, it's exactly the opposite of yesterday. Yesterday, the futures went up while oil dropped. So you can see just how dependent the market currently is on the further development of the oil price. Down here, you can also see the Hormuz traffic, which is basically close to zero. So nothing is happening there. The Strait of Hormuz is still dead. There's nothing going on. And that's why the oil price will continue to rise for now. No matter what Trump or anyone else says, everyone is releasing their oil reserves. Yes, but in my opinion, the real crisis will only come afterwards, when the oil price has completed its rise and then the drop happens. That's why Bitcoin in the end is moving up in tandem with the stock markets. Just like the stock markets did yesterday, and now there's this drop again. There's simply no volume at the moment. Let's take a quick look at the spot order book and you'll see what I meant. Here, 60 million, and that was up here at just under 75,000 US dollars, where most of the selling took place. Now, in the end, we've been in this range for quite some time, and there's still massive spot selling going on. The volume is still catastrophic, as you can see down here. But there's really nothing happening in the volume market, or rather in the entire crypto market. It's the same, of course, in the stock markets, which I showed you once during the live stream. Speaking of live streams, there's another live stream tonight on YouTube at 7 p.m. This is the chart I wanted to show you. S&P futures liquidity was 5.1 million last week. That's as low as it was on a holiday in April 2025. Levels below 7 million, for example, when it comes to S&P 500 liquidity, can lead to catastrophic consequences because much less liquidity is needed to pump the markets upward. And we're seeing a similar situation with Bitcoin at the moment. No liquidity, but we're still pumping because the markets are much easier to influence. As I said, in my opinion, this is not sustainable nonsense we're seeing here. Otherwise, as I said, everything is looking ahead. That's what I would say, right? Australia was the first country to raise interest rates now. In the end, everyone is waiting for tomorrow because today we won't get any real data either. That means we have to work with what we get in the end, and that's still oil price news. Tomorrow, the topic will come up again, and of course, producer prices are coming our way. Those will be very, very interesting. There are still no new forecasts for that either. Since yesterday, we also have to keep an eye on that. And then, of course, the FOMC statement, the second to last one from Powell. I'm curious to see how hawkish he will be. He will definitely be very, very careful with his choice of words. As I said, we won't be getting a rate cut. We've been aware of that for months. The only thing that could put even more pressure on the markets would be a rate hike. And if that word comes up in his speech in any way, then we could have a big problem. And on Thursday, Japan will also be coming at us with a possible carry trade because the dollar is still above 100. And if we take a look at the volatility index, by the way, that's also starting to rise again. All these basic data points we have at the moment, including the fact that gold is back above $5,000, still don't seem to me like a sign of major relief. Especially if you look at the volume, it's catastrophic no matter which market we look at right now. That's why, for me, my short position on Bitcoin remains unchanged. Nothing has changed there. For me, this accumulation personally resembles, if we take a quick look at our fractal, not so much in terms of timing, but rather if we shift the fractal up a bit, more like this, you can also see how accurately that fits. But that would also mean that we've skipped this phase up here, which the fractal initially seemed to indicate. This phase here would still take us toward 80,000 or even higher, maybe 82,000. In my opinion, it's questionable, but as I said, it currently fits like a glove to take this fractal from the lower edge. But as I said, it's still a bit too early. But in the end, that would mean the bottom would be somewhere around 50,000 to 49,000 US dollars. That would also fill the wick again. Let's keep an eye on it. As I said, it's still a bit too early. Let's move over to Ethereum. What does it look like there? Ethereum is finally getting a pump after our buy signal as well. That means here too, we're now in profit for the first time with our spot position. Let's see how long that lasts. But here it's the same game. RSI is completely overbought, no volume in it. Solana. A bit more volume than Ethereum, but even that somehow reminds me of up here again. You have to keep an eye on it. At the moment, the volume is still just terrible, even if there's a bit more volume now. For me, $118 could be possible, but everything has to line up perfectly. Everything really has to be just right for that to happen. But you can see it everywhere in the altcoins. Sure, we're getting our rallies, for example, with XRP right now, but that real momentum behind it, like we saw with Taro, which we looked at yesterday. By the way, again, the sell-off we had, we're still standing up here relatively stable, but at least there was some real momentum. That's exactly what's missing in the entire market. That's still just my opinion. If you want to trade all the altcoins or even Bitcoin, for example, you can do all of that with my partner exchange BingX. At the moment, there are up to 11,500 USDT in bonuses that you can claim. Just sign up using the first link in the video description below and you're in. And you'll always have the chance when we're live streaming to win trial funds or bonus vouchers. So definitely check out the link below. All right, now let's continue with the Forex charts. So the dollar is still above 100, which means the risk of intervention remains. As far as Japan is concerned, the intervention risk is still very, very high. Yesterday, we were in the intervention zone at 160. Let's wait and see. But the volume is also slowly decreasing here. In the end, we already have the divergence here. This is going to get very, very interesting. The euro, on the other hand, continues to tank. Of course, the euro, or rather, the entire eurozone is obviously suffering from the war as well, because, as I said, at the moment, we're not getting any oil or less oil, which is why the eurozone is suffering even more. That means the euro is tanking, the dollar is taking off. That's how it works. Let's quickly take a look at the JPY. Normally, the inefficiency down here hasn't been completely filled yet, so we still need to keep an eye on that. Otherwise, gold, what's gold doing? Gold remains stable at $5,000. I think I explained the buy zone down here to you yesterday, or maybe in the live stream. For me, if the carry trade is somehow unwound, I will definitely go for another hedge in gold, because then I can basically anticipate the counter move. And that means the dollar would then slump, the yen would go up, which means USD/JPY would also dump, and gold in turn would serve as a hedge again. Or if the dollar falls below 100, gold would once again become significantly more interesting as a hedge. That's the idea for now. Silver, in the end, is behaving one-to-one like gold. Then over to the traditional markets. DAX, well, it doesn't really look spectacular, to be honest. We're holding our support range that we had last year. So really, throughout the entire last year, we were in this range here. If we move the red box over here, that was last year's range. And for now, it has held, of course, because a lot of support was built up, but there hasn't been any real price action. Dow Jones is also in the red again in pre-market trading, at least for now. The patterns are always the same, no matter how we look at it. We pump up towards Monday, only to dump again on Tuesday. Tomorrow it will go up again because Trump will say that peace is here, world peace is here. And then Iran will say, come on, let's bomb a few offices, and then everything goes down again. That's what's happening right now. It's like a real Trump playbook, but you can slowly see in the market that people just don't care anymore. No one wants war, no one supports all this crap. And what's important is that the oil price drops, because otherwise things are really going to hit the fan in a few weeks due to inflation. And maybe you can remember what happened in 2008. Just by the way, if we take a look at the chart, 2008, subprime mortgage crisis. That was in July and a few weeks later. So oil dropped during that time because the crisis really started to pick up speed. And then it was only after that that the stock market dropped. That means we might see oil hit its top first before we see another drop in the stock markets. In any case, the NASDAQ, let's take another quick look at it. Where do we have it here? Why is it so far over? Over there, NASDAQ is still within our support band. S&P 500, same story. Yesterday, another pump, but we tested our resistance here again. And if we look at the volume is below average. What more do you need to say? And the volatility index is rising. Let's sum it up. The market continues to be driven by uncertainty. That means anything oil does will put pressure on the markets. Tomorrow is the FOMC meeting. The day after tomorrow, it's Japan's turn. Trade carefully, whether you're long or short, take profits. That's my tip for now. Take your profits, set your stop loss at entry, and that's it. I really can't tell you more at the moment because I don't trust this market one bit. The whole Bitcoin movement alone is an absolute shit show to me. Nothing has changed. It's still the same. All right, we'll talk again this evening at 7 p.m. We'll take a calm look at everything then. Otherwise, I'd say that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk again this evening, 7 p.m. Until then, ciao, ciao. And as always, stay crypto.